The economy is always changing, but some elements of the economy remain remarkably constant despite all of the surrounding change. And our next guest has written a book highlighting one notable example. The book is titled Stateless Commerce: The Diamond Network and the Persistence of Relational Exchange. The author is Barak Richman, Edgar P. and Elizabeth C. Bartlett Professor of Law and Business Administration at Duke University. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So we're talking, as the subtitle of the book it tells us, about the Diamond Network. Before we get into what's interesting about this from your perspective, tell people who don't know, how does this Diamond Network work in ways they might not have realized?
Well, any visitor to 47th Street in New York would instantly see a scene that is very different from the rest of New York. So we see an organizational structure, a distribution chain that at its face is remarkably different from what we have come to associate with modern commerce. And what we are seeing on 47th Street is a network of intermediaries. So diamonds, of course, are mined from the ground. We have large companies, most notably De Beers, that then takes these diamonds from the ground and distributes them to this network of intermediaries. And what we're seeing on 47th Street are the intermediaries that take the rough stones, sort them, polish them, sort them again, polish them, and then ultimately sell them to the people who make diamond jewelry. And this network of intermediaries these are not the wholesalers that sell things to Walmart. These are not the utilizers of modern technology, of modern commerce. What we see here are family businesses, individuals who have been in the industry for a long time, their ancestors have been in the industry for a long time, and they trade diamonds. They trade diamonds much like in most pre-modern societies, people were trading grapefruits.
And if we look at this business compared to others, this is substantially different from what happens in much of the rest of the economy, isn't it?
So it's different. It is substantially different in a number of different ways. And again, the best way to illustrate how different it is simply by looking at it. It looks different. You see a chaos of a bizarre economy, bizarre with two A's. You see the predominance of ethnic networks. Individuals walking along 47th Street are the people who dominate this segment of the industry. They are Orthodox Jews. They are Palanpuri Jains. That's an ethnic minority in India. These are Central Asian networks. These are Bukharan and Lebanese networks. And they're the ones who buy and sell diamonds, polish the diamonds, and navigate the global network.
We are chatting with Duke Professor Barak Richman. Now, many of us may see this if we go to 47th Street and say, that's kind of interesting. You, as a professor, take a look at it and say, wait a minute, there's more to this story. Tell us why this was something worthy of describing in this book called Stateless Commerce.
Exactly. So the title, Stateless Commerce, is derived from the notion that whenever there is a transaction, there needs to be some sense of governance. And it's just breaking it down. If somebody buys something on credit, and credit sales are economically desirable no matter what industry you are and no matter what time period you're in. But if someone is going to give you a product and expect you to pay down the road, there has to be some source of assurance, some source of governance to make sure that transaction goes through. In the diamond industry, that is an especially acute challenge because we're talking about diamonds. You give me $1 million worth of diamonds today. What assurance do you have that I'm going to pay you in 30 days? I have the diamonds with me. They are portable. They're universally valuable. They're virtually untraceable. I can go anywhere. In modern commerce, if you're selling me big stuff, a ton of steel or a house, we have liens. We have legal instruments that help us secure the transaction, sources of collateral. If I don't pay, then you have other sources to get me, and that in turn forces me to pay. But in the diamond industry, the law fails. Our legal institution simply is incapable of securing these transactions. So I approach this problem asking that basic question: how how can these extraordinarily hazardous transactions be governed? How is it economically feasible? How does it comport with some kind of economic logic that credit can be extended? And the answer to that question is also the answer to the question, why does this industry look so different? You have families dominating the industry. You have ethnic networks dominating the industry. And those kinship ties, family and community ties, serve as the source of collateral. If I don't pay you back, it means that my family, not just myself, my family is out of the business. It also means that I have brought shame on my community, so to speak. And my community will no longer accept me as it did before.
And is this the relational exchange that's part of your title?
That is the relational exchange, exactly. We have this certain notion of economic history, of economic modernization, that before there were legal institutions, we only had personal exchange. And it was an extraordinary accomplishment, extraordinary economic accomplishment, to go from personal exchange to impersonal exchange. When impersonal exchange is possible, you can trade with anybody. You open up markets. You're no longer beholden to sources of power, concentrated authority. You bring in dynamism. You bring in innovators. You open up scale. But impersonal exchange requires some kind of non-traditional governance mechanism. And most people think that the emergence of courts enabled impersonal exchange and really expanded the ability of, in particular, European economies to grow along the Middle Ages. What this paper suggests is that impersonal exchange is not always possible with certain industries, and certainly the role of courts and the state is not always effective or even available in supporting economic expansion and market transactions. And that's why we see these pockets of of relational exchange that persist into the modern era.
Are there some lessons to be learned that we can apply to other sectors of the economy?
So there are lots of lessons. One is that there is a reason that different areas of commerce, different industries are organized in their own way. Every particular transaction in every industry has its own features, has its own nuances that it has to overcome and manage. And to achieve efficiencies in those different kinds of economic settings is different. So what is good for the banking is not good for diamond, which is not good for steel, which is not good for cars. And we should not apply any kind of hegemonic view of what efficiency looks like or what we think efficiency should look like. Certainly, one great lesson is we have to think about the legal and social environment that can nurture different industries in ways that we're not entirely familiar with. And also, we should understand that that certain economic policy tools should be applied with care. That often the legal and social and structural environment of different areas of commerce, of different industries, are not understood at first glance, and we might be hesitant to apply certain policy interventions.